Okay, welcome U.S. Virgin Islands Chess to another edition from your host Colin Heim, your U.S. Virgin Islands Chess operator and instructor. So let's go over this game now. Your online instructor, host, and operator. Let's go over this Giocco piano Italian game, and let's explain the Italian game from White's perspective. This was another FIDE online match played by myself, and in this game I had white pieces, and my opponent is a pretty good player. And let's just show how to play a nice, confident Italian game with white, and let's simplify it and let's explain it at a decent level so we can understand and improve our Italian game. Let's go over the Giocco piano: e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, and knight to f6. Okay, knight to f6 and short castles played in the game. Let's go over a little virtual analysis here, guys. Let's go for a book move now. So in some cases, maybe this is not played at the top level anymore, but in modern chess, probably not so much now. But this used to be a really old line after knight to g5 played by white, and then now attacking the bishop here. And then the book move here is just to capture, right? And then not knight captures. Yeah, I guess you could capture here with the knight, but then the book move recommended here, what was played probably hundreds of years ago, was just this, and then just putting up the pawn here. Again, this is all book stuff. Pawn captures, and then bishop drops back to e2. So this was a line that was literally played thousands and thousands of times in the olden days. This is the old Giocco piano back in the Roman. I think the Giocco piano was probably somewhere around 1200 Anno Domini. Very, very long time ago, guys. Ancient chess. This is very, very old style. We didn't go for any of that, guys. After knight to f6, okay, let's go back to my game, modern chess, which was actually just played yesterday, to be exact. We went for short castles instead. Okay, short castles, and now this is all theoretical. With h6 now, not allowing the knight to make progress. Rook to e1 now played by white. Bishop to c5, more pressure on the f2 pawn. No surprise there. h3, good defense. d6 now, probably best move, and now just a3. a3 and a6 played by my opponent, and now with b4. Okay, so this is all been seen before, just pretty mainline Italian stuff. So the bishop drops back to b6. In some cases, guys, I think we see it a higher level play, the bishop dropping all the way back to a7 square. a7 is probably good because it gets the bishop all the way back. So we see just bishop to b6, which is fine too. And now bishop to b2 going for the Larsen, the long diagonal, dark square bishop, being carried on the long diagonal for Team White. And short castles for my opponent, and then d4. Now just striking in the center. Okay. So this position with two knights here on the main line for black. This has been seen so many times. I'm sure you guys have probably played games like this before. What is black supposed to play in this position? Well, black is supposed to just capture. And that's what happened here in the game. This main line Italian. So let's go over it now. Knight captures on d4, black captures with knight on d4, bishop captures, black bishop recaptures, and then queen d4. So queen into d4 finishes that long line where half of the minor pieces were exchanged off the board, the d4 square, after pushing d4, and now we just have a chess game, right? So black has castled in the short side, has a decent pawn structure, queen getting ready to go to any square. Any of these squares for the queen are good for black on the next move, by the way. Instead, we saw my opponent play a move maybe not so recommended, and, well, after rook to e8, and then after me developing my queenside knight, we saw knight to h7. That's what I was getting at, guys. Knight h7, without getting too ahead of ourselves. Let's see what you're supposed to play here now. Without looking at the algebraic notation below you guys, can you guys find the best move for white? Can you spot the best move for sure? So remember, I just developed that queenside knight to c3 now. What's the best move for white? Can you spot it? Can you get a little creative and just think like Carlsen? Right, e5 is the best move. e5 is best. It actually kind of forces black to capture after d into e, queen captures d8, rook d8, and rook e5. Okay, did that make sense, guys? Did that make sense? Again, so black captures here. Let's say black doesn't capture here. What would be another move for black here? What else could black play? Could black just play rook captures on e5? Is that recommended by the engine here? No, it's highly unrecommended by the engine. Do we know why, guys? That's highly unrecommended. Right, because now if rook captures and pawn recaptures, you're just winning a queen. Okay, so that's why it's not recommended that you take with a rook there. Okay, so in the game, that's why we saw d into e5, standard stuff. Queen d8, rook e5, and now knight to f6. So maybe after this, maybe pushing f6 here, the pawn. Oh, well, you can't do that, right? Because the king is still on g8 square. Okay, so this was probably why knight h7 was played. Now getting just a reroute for the dark horse there. But now, guys, this gives me a chance to double up on the e-file, and in this position, I really do think white is just better. We went through this main line, the Giocco piano, very standard stuff with h3, h6, h3, a3, a6, and bishop b2. And yeah, so far I would much rather have white here in this position. What can black come up with? Does black look passive in development? Does black look like, I mean, the rooks are stronger obviously for team white. Let's go through the rest of the game now and find out why this is better for white. Let's find out why this is better for white, guys and girls. Let's go. The c6 played by my opponent. c6 is c6, maybe getting ready to push b5 someday, right? And instead, just rook to e7, guys. Now more attack to f7 pawn and wanting to get to the 7th rank. Some of my beginner tutorial videos, guys, in the playlist, I talk about getting to the 7th rank with white pieces, and I talk about getting to the 2nd rank black pieces. Very, very important. You can go over that in the virtual beginner playlist. Okay, so we have rook to e7, getting to the 7th rank, right, as we mentioned, putting more pressure here. And rook to d7 played by my opponent. Okay, now can you guys find the best move for white without looking at the notation? Can you guys find the best move for white in this position? Can you guys find the best move for white? Well, the best move for white is just to capture now with the light squared bishop with check. And after, let's say, in theory, if king goes to f8, well then, there's a capture here, bishop captures, and now just dropping the bishop back to g3 is fine. And white is up a pawn. So white is +1 in a really nice position. The king is cut off here from the rook on e1. The black rook can't even get to somewhere like e8, for example. It has to just go to d8. Which is the best continuation. We didn't see any of that in the game, everyone. Instead, we saw knight a4 by myself, and that was a mistake. Okay, can now we find the move that black played in this position? b5. It's sort of recommended by the engine. It's sort of saying it's a good move. But anyways, now you have to play bishop captures into f7, and that's exactly what was played by myself here. Okay, and as recommended, f8 square is best for the king, but instead we saw king to h8. And now it's time to punish black with rook into d7, bishop recaptures, and now knight to b6, forking the bishop and the rook on a8. And the only good continuation is rook to d8, obviously, defending the rook itself as well as the light squared bishop for black. So now, get the other rook to the 7th rank. Do we see how that worked, guys? That's why, let's just go back here for a moment and go back to doubling up here on the e-file. Doubling up here, we see the arrow, doubling up on the e-file, and that allowed for this whole exchange variation. Knight a4 was a little inaccuracy. I was getting a little ahead of myself there, but anyways. With bishop to f5 now after rook to e7 played by myself, guys, just attacking that c2 pawn, and now playing c2, c4. c2, c4, okay? And in this position, my opponent attacked my white knight on b6. And playing the best move in the position is that it's just push and defend. Now the knight is cemented on b6 for good. And yes, it cannot go backwards. But that is why in this position my opponent decided to get to d8 now to check my white king on the back rank. And that's exactly what happened. After I went to go attack my opponent's a6 pawn, rook d1 check, king h2, and knight to e4 is correct. Now just going after f2 pawn. Congratulations, guys. If you guys have endured this far and made it all the way to move 28, I congratulate you. We're about 10.5 minutes in now. Well done. And if you have the strength to keep going, we're going to go for about another 5 minutes or so. And let us proceed. f3. Knight to d2. Getting ready to check on the f1 square for the white king. But the black king is going to be under some pressure here in just a moment. Rook a8 check, there goes the black king. And now can you guys spot the move that I played here with white in this main Giocco piano? Can you find the move that your instructor played? Right. That's it. Bishop g8 check, and now the king has one square to go to. King cannot go to somewhere like h8, for example, because there's just a discovered check here, and you lose the rook. Okay, guys, chess is a complicated game. So instead, the best move, king g3, well, really next to the only move. And now king to g3, now played by myself, getting ready to come up their board. There comes that horse, as we mentioned, knight f1 check, still checking my white king, and king to f4. King to f4 is a great move, because now after my opponent basically felt like he had to move his king, right? Rook f8 is coming with check. Only two available squares. Well, if you go to this square, it's takes, and the game will be ending shortly. And then if you go to somewhere like e7, then it's takes and the game is ending even sooner. And that's exactly what happened in our game. So rook f5 and rook to e1. Perhaps it was best just to play this move from my opponent, even though it's not recommended. There is a check here on the d4 square, and the king has one square to move to. And very soon it will be checkmate. Let's say any continuation now from Team Black. Is there any continuation? Is there anything at all here? Okay. Let's just say putting the rook back on one of these squares. Well, and there's a check here. King can go there. And that's also a check. King has to get out of the way. Still going to be checkmate very, very soon. That's also a check. And then there's definitely going to be a mate there. After check here. And maybe just check again. You can take a pawn. And that is going to be a mate very, very, very soon. The only continuation, maybe just here, and that's going to be checkmate. After you play this move. It'll be mate in just one. Right, so takes, takes. Still not a mate yet. Incredible. And how to, okay. And that's going to be the checkmate. Okay, good. So I didn't know how to checkmate there in the final part of the game, given that line, that variation. So let's take that all back now, everyone. And let's just go to what was played in the game. We saw rook to e1 played by my opponent, and now, yes, in that case, checking. And now you must capture, because if on the next move you just move the king, well then I am just taking the rook for free. So that is why in this position the game terminated with rook e1, rook e5, king takes e5, and that's the end of the game, guys. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Okay, that was a good 15-minute show of this Giocco piano. Main line, Giocco piano, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, f6, and short castles. And it was in this position that you guys, if you can, just please set up over the board and gain some instruction on your own time. Rewind the virtual analysis and go through everything that I covered. I want to thank you guys as per normal. Happy New Year, and see everyone on the other side. This is your host signing off for now. Bye-bye, everyone, and take care. Until next time. Thank you.